news that are concerned with politics and current events are unreliable. However, this problem is present not only in Ukraine and Russia, but in other countries around the world. Contemporary media has proven to be unreliable. Now, news provide us with information that influences our worldview, our decision-making, and ultimately, our actions. Yet the majority of worldwide news prefer bias over fact. Now, I was interested in news from a very young age. I particularly enjoyed watching politicians and presidents address their countries and give passionate speeches. I honestly admired them, and I thought that becoming a politician was the highest honor one could achieve. That it was given only to the most intelligent, trustworthy, and hard-working people. Later on, I found out the bitter truth that these qualities, unfortunately, do not apply to the majority of the politicians. Yet, I never lost interest in them or the news. And honestly, thank God I didn't, because there was nothing really to do. Like, I just watched news and like 5 other different cooking shows that my mother adored. But let's move on from my boring parts of childhood. As I continued pursuing my interest, I researched more about the news companies themselves. So ideally, they would be independent, they would provide objective facts, multiple perspectives on different issues, and also inform different segments of the population. So each group of people will be well informed about the issues that they really care about. Yet, things are a little bit different in reality. To me, honestly, contemporary news media reminds more of a sketch comedy than actual news. And take, for example, a story. The Ukrainian national news channel reported that a building in Sloviansk, which is a city in the eastern part of Ukraine, was bombed by Russian army and was on fire. That same day, Russian national news channel reported that that same building was bombed. And I'm sure you've guessed it by now, that apparently was bombed by Ukrainian army. Both reports used a video of a local explaining where the bombs came from, pointing in the direction of the supposed source, and then blaming the other side. And in both reports, for the majority of the videos, the camera would just point straight up, and the only thing you can see on your screens is just fingers of journalists flying around measuring the imaginary trajectory of the bombs, which the channels later presented as undeniable evidence. You know, I could as easily film myself just drawing a curve in the sky and saying, I see bombs flying around, and if they would see the video, they'd probably use it for their report and say that another attack has occurred. But let's go back to the actual videos. While the actors were different, and I suspect they were actors, but that might just be me. While the actors were different, the actual reports were practically identical. Word for word, I just saw the similarities, and I just couldn't stop myself from laughing. But this is not where the story about the mysterious building ends. Later on, an American, one of the largest news channels in America, reported that same story was just a slight difference. According to them, the building was located in the middle of Russia. And they didn't know why it was on fire, but they proceeded to criticize the Russian government for poor safety measures in the country. I don't know where they got that information, but they got it. So finally, a small Ukrainian news channel reported that an accident has occurred in one of the buildings in Sloviansk. Apparently, an older woman forgot to turn off her oven, which caused the fire. No casualties were reported, and no actual bombing has occurred. So, as a result, we have 4 different versions of the same event. And this is a perfect example of how any event, any news story can become political if the news media organizations are unintentionally, or well, in this case intentionally, biased towards one side. And everyone forgot about the fact that 3 largest news media channels from different countries misinformed their audience. Like, there were no international media organizations that reported about it. I found that after hours of research. And if I have to research that much, every time I watch a news story, then I might as well have a running line of text warning me that this video contains biased opinions, propaganda, irrational judgments, and or the stories that we just came up with ourselves. So it would at least save me time wondering, like, okay, which part of this is propaganda, which part of this is just lies, and which part of this is actual truth. But, unfortunately, they're not really willing to do so. So, now let's look at a different example. So let's move to a slightly different topic, sensationalism. Post-truth, or at this point more known as fake news. And sensationalism is particularly spread wide in Britain across different news media outlets. Titles like UK mosques fundraising for terror, or 1 in 5 Brit Muslims sympathizing for jihadists. They really show how news media is just ready to jump on that bandwagon of hate for the sake of profit. And it is noteworthy that the different companies that made these controversial statements later acknowledged their misleading nature after quite a few public complaints. One of the papers that wrote the title UK Mosque Fundraising for Terror dismissed that claim in that same article, saying that UK mosques, quote-unquote, were not involved. And many news companies do that. So they dismiss their provocative claims to avoid public shaming, while still making huge profits from their controversies, from their provocative statements, and no one's there to stop them. So, how do we do it? What do we do? This is our reality. This is the reality of contemporary news media. It's bias, it's provocative statements, it's sensationalism, and it's propaganda. And I'm sure that to many of you, this information is not new. But it only shows how this status quo is something that we've learned to accept. And accepting is the first step to giving up on any change. And instead, I think we should look at the ways that news media could be improved. But before that, let's look at the final, third example, when news media not only jumps on the popular trends, but also changes their stance on different issues, according to their audience's views. Or if they want to profit from politicians or special interests, they just change their news, they change their stance on issues according to the views of those politicians or special interests. So, for instance, during American presidential elections, Donald Trump created a blacklist, and many news companies that generally advocated against Donald Trump, they switched their narrative after they've been included in that blacklist. And blacklist is something that he created, which included all news companies that advocated against him or criticized him at some point. And since his persona became so popular that this blacklist meant huge losses for the news companies, which is why they changed their stances on different issues and later on portrayed him in a more positive manner. Donald Trump didn't even have to bribe them. He didn't even have to break the law any way to have a dramatic influence over their reporting. So, how can we improve news media? Or how can it be improved? First, the integral part of news is reporting facts in an unbiased manner. And language is key to ensuring that this reporting is objective and neutral. So strategic word choice is often used by news companies to influence the opinion of their audience without the audience realizing that they're being manipulated. Which is why constant monitoring of word choice is essential, like by outside experts or even agencies. So, in fact, a relatively new Ukrainian news media company created a website and collected a team of experts that tracked the news and analyzed them in terms of language. And this website, unfortunately, focuses only on Russian news and in regards to Ukraine. But they're an example of how news media could potentially make their reporting less biased. Obviously, they're willing to do so. But reporting objective news is very difficult, even for those news companies that sincerely want to do it. This is where debates come. Debate is a great way to introduce multiple perspectives on different issues in a fair and objective manner. And first we need to consider the point of equal representation of views, of different perspectives. Equal representation includes having the same number of people that represent different perspectives, having the same amount of time for each representative, and the same societal standing of the representatives. And what do I mean by societal standing? So for example, if you have a celebrity debating with a regular office worker, obviously you're going to trust the celebrity because you know the celebrity, maybe the celebrity contributed money to charitable organizations, while no one has a clue who is that regular office worker, which is why it's important to have the same societal standing. Now, second point to consider is organization. Each representative should have an equal opportunity to present their views without being interrupted. I mean, screaming, shouting, fighting doesn't really help us, the audience, to understand their arguments better, right? Which is why organization is so important. And finally, no personal attacks should be allowed, which would make debates more coherent and would allow us, the audience, to focus on the actual arguments instead of the representatives themselves. So, all these solutions are essential. And some might think that these rules are a little bit too strict, but they're important to make news media less biased. Yet, it won't matter if the news media is not independent. And independence can only be achieved with public funding and transparency. Public funding is a simple and common way that would make sure that special interests cannot easily take over the news companies, take control. Financial backing by public would incentivize the news companies to work for the public and would take away the for-profit incentive away. So, nevertheless, even with public funding, news companies are not protected from government forcibly controlling them. And the only way that we could possibly fully protect the news companies from government forces is to just, organize volunteer squads and patrol around the HQs of the news companies. But it's not realistic, right? So the only possible way that we can ensure that news companies will be independent is by making them transparent. Profits, costs, non-sensitive information should be available to the public. Transparency would put these news companies on a moral high ground, so that if the public is aware that these companies are transparent, the government has little leverage in justifying any actions against the news companies. So, I realize, realistically, when you leave this auditorium, you're not going to go and protest against the biased news media. You're not going to take the placards and flags and go protest. But I do want you to leave with a few things in mind. First, look for different perspectives, whether or not they fit your viewpoint. Knowing different perspectives might change your opinion, or it might not. It's just you have, think of it as an advantage against your friends or relatives with whom you want to argue about current events or politics. But also, looking at different perspectives will help you to make sure that the sources you are using are in fact reliable. For example, if I wouldn't research, I wouldn't know that the building in Sloviansk was not bombed by the Ukrainian army of my own country, but it was just a fire caused by an older woman. Second of all, participate in the movement for independent news media. I'm not asking you to organize volunteer squads, but I do want you to look for reliable and trustworthy sources of information. Share it with your relatives and friends. Support it morally and financially. Participate, make a contribution to a better future of news media. And that is my idea worth spreading. Thank you.